In the 1930s, Germany, under the regime of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, began to implement its distorted vision of a world order. This ideology promoted the superiority of the Aryan race and the systematic elimination of those considered inferior, especially the Jews. This dark chapter led to the creation of the concentration camps. Originally places of detention for political enemies, these camps quickly evolved into centers of death and slavery. With the implementation of the final solution, the terror network expanded, and millions were brutally murdered. We will explore the origins, functions, and devastating impacts of the Nazi concentration camps. Through testimonies and historical archives, we will try to understand the atrocious crimes committed and remember why it is crucial not to forget them. In the 1930s, Germany, under the regime of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, began to implement his distorted vision of a world order. This ideology promoted the superiority of the Aryan race and the systematic elimination of those considered inferior, especially the Jews. This chapter led to the creation of the concentration camps. Originally places of detention for political enemies, these camps quickly evolved into centers of death and slavery. With the implementation of the final solution, the terror network expanded, and millions were brutally murdered. We will explore the origins, functions, and devastating impacts of Nazi concentration camps. Through testimonies and historical archives, we will try to understand the heinous crimes committed and remember why it is crucial not to forget them. Nazi concentration camps began as simple detention centers under the control of the SA and the Gestapo, but over time, they transformed into a vast network of forced labor and extermination. However, as the policy of extermination intensified, new camps were created specifically to implement the final solution of the Nazis. Among these camps, Auschwitz became the most notorious, an extermination complex where it is estimated that more than 1 million Jews and other prisoners lost their lives. Other camps, such as Treblinka and Sobibor, were designed as pure extermination facilities, where most of the prisoners were killed immediately after their arrival. In these places, the Nazis used industrialized killing methods, including gas chambers and crematoria, to execute their genocide on an unprecedented scale. We will explore each of these camps in more depth in the next segments, detailing their specific functions and the horrible conditions to which the prisoners were subjected. Auschwitz-Birkenau, located in occupied Poland, is undoubtedly the most synonymous name with the horrors perpetrated by the Nazi regime. It was the largest of the extermination camps and played a central role in the implementation of the final solution. Auschwitz had both the function of forced labor and mass extermination. The gas chambers of Auschwitz operated with deadly efficiency, designed to kill thousands of people each day, and the crematoria worked continuously to conceal the magnitude of the genocide. From dawn to dusk, the prisoners were subjected to forced labor in extreme conditions, without adequate food or medical attention. The food rations were barely enough to keep a person alive, composed mostly of dirty water and a piece of bread. Diseases such as typhus, tuberculosis, and dysentery spread rapidly due to the lack of hygiene and extreme overcrowding in the barracks. Violence was omnipresent. The SS guards and the capos, prisoners who served as supervisors, inflicted arbitrary and cruel punishments. Acts of cruelty included beatings, summary executions, and torture. The selection, a process by which the SS doctors decided who would be sent to work and who would be killed immediately, was a constant terrifying threat to all the prisoners. In the midst of this horror, there were also acts of resistance and solidarity. The prisoners shared their meager food rations, helped each other to survive, and in some cases, organized orchestras, wrote poems, and performed plays as ways of keeping hope and humanity alive. Women in the camps faced additional challenges, including sexual abuse and, in many cases, medical experimentation. Pregnant women were often forced to abort or their babies were killed at birth. Despite these terrors, women also established support networks that played a crucial role in preserving the spirit and life of their fellow captives. Treblinka, another extermination camp, although less known than Auschwitz, was the site of an unimaginable atrocity. Also located in Poland, it was built specifically for extermination. It was not intended that the prisoners would survive more than a few hours in the camp. Approximately 900,000 Jews were murdered in Treblinka in less than a year. The brutal efficiency of this camp highlighted the horrifying level of planning and systematization of the Holocaust. Sobibor, similar in function to Treblinka, was the scene of one of the few successful uprisings inside a concentration camp. In October 1943, a group of prisoners, led by Alexander Petrsky, rebelled against their captors. Although many did not manage to escape, this act of bravery resulted in the closure of the camp by the Nazis, potentially saving thousands of additional lives. Buchenwald, located in Germany, was not primarily an extermination camp, but the conditions inside it were extremely severe, and death was a constant. Buchenwald is infamous for the inhumane medical experiments that were conducted on prisoners, including tests of resistance to infectious diseases, sterilizing treatments, and drug tests. Mauthausen, in Austria, known for its granite quarries, where prisoners were forced to work until death. The death staircase, composed of 186 stone steps, was a daily mortal test for the prisoners, who had to carry heavy blocks of stone, with many dying in the process due to extreme exhaustion or being pushed to death by the guards. Each one of these camps illustrates different aspects of the brutal system of the Nazi concentration camps. Their operation reveals not only the magnitude of the horror, but also the coldness with which the plan of mass extermination was executed. Daily life in the Nazi concentration camps was marked by unimaginable brutality and inhumane conditions. The prisoners, stripped of all dignity and treated as less than human, faced a regime of terror that sought to completely dehumanize them. Hunger, disease, extreme forced labor, and constant violence were everyday aspects of existence in the camps. These descriptions barely touch the surface of the daily realities of the concentration camps. The scale of suffering is almost inconceivable, but it is crucial to remember and recognize these truths, not only to honor those who suffered and died, but to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. The resistance in the concentration camps, although extremely dangerous and difficult, demonstrated the indomitable will to fight even in the most desperate circumstances. The acts of resistance ranged from the sabotage of the machinery and the production of weapons to organized riots and escapes, although many times these acts were paid for with life. In Auschwitz, for example, on October 7, 1944, members of the Sonderkommando, prisoners in charge of operating the gas chambers and crematoria, organized an uprising. Sabotaging the facilities and armed with homemade grenades, they fought bravely against their captors. Although most were recaptured and executed, their act of rebellion remains a powerful testimony of resistance. Similarly, in Sobibor, on October 14, 1943, the prisoners carried out one of the only successful revolts in the history of the concentration camps. Under the leadership of Alexander Petrsky, the prisoners executed a carefully orchestrated plan that resulted in the escape of 300 prisoners. This uprising led to the permanent closure of the camp by the Nazis, saving countless lives. The prisoners also used less violent but equally significant forms of resistance. They had radios to receive and transmit news from the outside, secretly organized education for children, and kept their faith and culture alive through clandestine religious ceremonies. These acts were not only forms of defiance but also essential means to maintain morale and hope. The liberation of the concentration camps by the Allied forces revealed to the world the full extent of the Nazi horror. The images of malnourished and traumatized prisoners, along with the testimonies of the atrocities committed, spurred further efforts to bring the Nazi leaders before justice in the Nuremberg trials and other judicial processes. The courage and determination of those who resisted in the concentration camps remind us of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of extreme oppression. These stories of resistance and liberation are fundamental to our collective memory of the Holocaust, ensuring that the lessons learned from the concentration camps persist as a dark reminder of one of the darkest chapters in human history. The post-war period not only brought with it the challenge of physical reconstruction but also the need to confront the deep psychological and cultural scars left by the Holocaust. The survivors, many of whom suffered unimaginable traumas and losses, faced the arduous process of reintegrating into a society that, in many cases, could not fully understand the extent of their suffering. The importance of remembering and teaching about the Holocaust has led to the creation of numerous monuments and museums around the world. These memorial sites, such as the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial in Poland, serve not only as educational centers but also as places of reflection and tribute to the victims. Through exhibitions and educational programs, they strive to tell the story of the Holocaust in a way that highlights human dignity and resistance to barbarism. educational efforts have expanded to include the testimonies of survivors, who bring a personal and deeply emotional perspective to the historical narrative. These personal stories are crucial to understanding the human impact of the Holocaust and to fostering an empathy that transcends generations and cultures. International law has also been profoundly influenced by the atrocities of the concentration camps. The formulation of the Geneva Convention and the definition and prosecution of genocide as an international crime are direct consequences of the international community's attempt to prevent future horrors similar to the Holocaust. Commemorating the Holocaust does not only mean remembering those who suffered and perished, but also reflecting on our collective capacity for evil and our ongoing responsibility to fight against intolerance and hatred. The memory of the concentration camps challenges us to act with justice and humanity, ensuring that never again is a tangible reality in our world. Reflecting on the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps and the immense suffering they inflicted, we face the imperative need to remember and learn from history. It is crucial that we remember not only to honor the millions of victims of the Holocaust, but to educate future generations about the dangers of unbridled hatred and intolerance. This dark chapter of our history teaches us that vigilance is necessary to protect the dignity and rights of all people. We must always be alert against ideologies that seek to divide and dehumanize us. The history of the concentration camps reminds us of the importance of acting with empathy and justice, and of promoting a society that values diversity and mutual respect. Commemorating the Holocaust does not only mean remembering those who suffered and perished, but also reflecting on our collective capacity for evil and our ongoing responsibility to fight against intolerance and hatred. The memory of the concentration camps challenges us to act with justice and humanity, ensuring that never again is a tangible reality in our world. Reflecting on the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps and the immense suffering they inflicted, we face the imperative need to remember and learn from history. It is crucial that we remember not only to honor the millions of victims of the Holocaust, but to educate future generations about the dangers of unbridled hatred and intolerance. This dark chapter of our history teaches us that vigilance is necessary to protect the dignity and rights of all people. We must always be alert against ideologies that seek to divide and dehumanize us. The history of the concentration camps reminds us of the importance to act with empathy and justice, and to promote a society that values diversity and mutual respect. The commitment to memory and education is our shield against the repetition of such atrocities. By educating about the Holocaust, we foster understanding and resilience in our communities, equipping each new generation with the knowledge and empathy necessary to build a better and fairer future. Thank you for accompanying us on this journey through history. If this video resonated with you, I encourage you to share it and continue learning and teaching about the past. Together, we can ensure that the lessons of the Holocaust are never forgotten. Don't forget to subscribe for more content that explores and honors our shared history. With this tour of the Nazi concentration camps and their devastating consequences, we have seen how the darkest history can offer vital lessons about human dignity and the importance of memory. By remembering the horrors that happened, we pledge to protect our future against the repetition of such atrocities. Thank you for taking the time to reflect with us on these critical events in our history. Your interest and commitment to historical memory play an essential role in education and in the prevention of future acts of inhumanity. If you are interested in this video and you want to continue exploring and understanding our past, I invite you to subscribe to the channel.